So today in Can You Solve It, we are going to talk about the Hwaseong murders. So this murder case went on from 1986 to 1994. So the first case was in 1986 in a rural town near Hwaseong. The tiny kampong was rocked by a series of rapes and murders targeting female residents. The series of murders begins instilling fears in the community. The first known victim was a 71-year-old woman who was found strangled with her own clothes. In October of 1986, the second victim, a 25-year-old woman, was also found dead under similar circumstances. And then May 12th, in 1987, the Korean newspaper reported the mystery chain of rapes and murders in Hwaseong, highlighting the distress in the community as the fifth victim, a 29-year-old woman, found murdered after being missing for 10 days. Between 1986 to 1991, over the next 5 years, 10 women, ranging in the age from teenagers to elderly women, were found murdered. Each victim was found strangled with their own clothes and often with their eyes covered in their own underwear. In November of 1988, a 14-year-old girl was found dead, which raises alarm due to her very young age. However, in January of 1990, a 13-year-old girl, which is a year younger, was also found dead, strangled by her own clothes as well. And then in 1991, just a year later, the victim count already reaches 10, with the final victim being a 69-year-old woman who were killed, and suspicion arises that a copycat killer might have been responsible for the crime. In 1994, a man called Chun-jae was convicted of rape and murder of his 18-year-old sister-in-law. He was sentenced to death, but the Korean Supreme Court later reduces the sentence to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 20 years. At this point, he was not yet linked to any of the Hwaseong serial murders. But between 1986 to 2019, the Hwaseong serial murders remain one of the most famous unsolved cases in South Korea. Over 21,280 suspects were interrogated, and more than 2 million men were spent by the police investigating the murders. Despite the collection of fingerprints, hair, and DNA samples, the investigation was hampered by several factors. The first one, in late of 1980s, forensic science is not as advanced and Korea lacks the necessary DNA analysis equipment. Samples must be sent to the USA for testing. In mid of the 1990s, police mistakenly searched for a suspect with blood type B, while the actual killer has blood type O. 2000s, Korea acquires its own forensic equipment and begins conducting regular comparative DNA analysis. 2006, the statute of limitation expires for all Hwaseong murders, legally preventing any further prosecutions for these specific crimes. In September of 2019, advances in forensic technology and a systematic review of DNA evidence lead to a breakthrough. Chun-jae's DNA matches samples from the crime scenes, and he confesses to 14 of the murders and numerous rapes during police interrogations. However, due to the statute of limitations, he cannot be retried for the Hwaseong murders. In 2019, Chun-jae remains in Busan prison serving his life sentence for the murder of his sister-in-law. His confession brings some closure to the families of the victims and the community, but no new legal actions were taken due to existing statutes. The confession reveals that Lee had been at large for 5 years after his initial conviction, highlighting flaws in the investigation and the justice system. The case brings to light the need for improved forensic capabilities and more rigorous investigative procedures to prevent such prolonged injustice in the future.